So Jack Posobiec puts out this tweet. No one is even asking the question, why did all these intel officials want Biden to become president so much that they were willing to lie to protect him? Well, the first obvious answer to that is they thought they could get away with it, and it may turn out that they still will. The second answer, the second more, I guess, more a deeper answer to the whole anti-Trump derangement among the administrative state and the politicians who serve the administrative state is that the administrative state suffers from severe insecurity due to the fact that they know full well, largely, that they are parasites. And they know full well that the end of the road may be coming, that the administrative state as it is unsustainable. Not only because of fiscal reasons, but just because the American people are starting to get fed up with it. If you're a bureaucracy, how can you do your job if 50% or more of the country absolutely hates you? How secure would you feel as a bureaucrat in the FDA, for example? So even before Trump won, even while he was running, and it was looking like, well, it seems like when the gears shifted, so to speak, was when Trump won the nomination. By the way, I predicted in January 3rd, 2016, before Trump was even nominated, I predicted he would win the presidency. That's one of my best predictions ever. The only prediction that I like, that I feel more proud of, is when I predicted the exact path of Hurricane Irma a week before it hit us here in Florida. It kind of grazed us here in the Miami area. But that's neither here nor there. Back to the lecture at hand. So you see, when he won the nomination, or when it was looking like he was going to win a nomination, you see the Operation Crossfire Hurricane gets opened by Peter Strzok. He went into the FBI building nonchalantly on a Sunday when very few people were working there, and he started the paperwork for the investigation. These bureaucrats know better than anyone else how the system works. They know better than private sector lawyers. They know better than the citizens. I mean, the citizens of this country are absolutely dense when it comes to civics. They know better than the law enforcement officer. Well, the law enforcement officers are bureaucrats. They know better than the politicians how the system works. And that's why the politicians fear them. And that's why they shill for them. So they started with Operation Crossfire Hurricane before Trump was even nominated, right around the time he was nominated. And that, of course, picked up and turned into Russiagate, the Steele dossier, James Comey. We all know the story. I mean, it was such an intriguing episode of American history. And we really got to see the inner workings. Well, that's not good, is it? I got some little pop-up spyware thing. So we got to see a lot of the corrupt inner workings of the FBI and DOJ especially, and of course the CIA. We all knew they were corrupt. But yes, the bureaucracies, the administrative state, I don't like using the word deep state. because it's just an administrative state, just like the Roman administrative state that took over the republic and turned it into a military dictatorship, just like the Byzantine Empire's administrative state, which in tandem with the aristocrats brought about the slow decline of the Byzantine Empire. Just like the various Chinese administrative states. You know, if you look at the Chinese history, which is one of my favorite histories to study, you see starting in the Zhou dynasty, the mandate of heaven is kind of enumerated as a concept. And you see this cyclical nature of centralization to decentralization. A dynasty would spring up. The administrative state would grow until it became a bloated parasite. And that eventually brought about the decline of that dynasty. Sometimes very quickly, things fell apart. The Ming dynasty fell apart in 20 or 30 years. It had been the most powerful country in the world, the most powerful empire in the world by some standards. And it fell apart in 20 years, you know. So never say never, folks. But the administrative state in the United States is nothing if not incredibly insecure. And they felt so threatened by Trump that throughout his presidency, they did everything they could to obstruct his presidency. Well, let's give some of these, you know, the Border Patrol seemed to comply and to like Trump. That makes sense. There were a few bureaucracies, you know. The DOD seemed kind of mixed feelings, kind of ambivalent, but definitely the intel agencies, the main law enforcement agencies, the FBI, the most corrupt agencies. If we could create a scale of corruption in the United States government, you know, you'd have to put the CIA up top and the FBI not too far down there. DOJ, absolutely ridiculous. Prosecutors, federal prosecutors, there's so much malfeasance. We all know that. Anybody who really, you know, understands what's going on knows that. So these people were willing to do anything. They felt so threatened by Trump. You know, maybe the whole episode with the vaccine shilling on the part of Trump was just his way of getting, maybe he just wanted the FDA to like him. So he did everything he could to shill for them. Because, you know, one thing about Trump, if I can, you know, glean something about his personality, it's that he wants to be liked by people. He wants to be admired by people, not liked. He wants to be admired by people. He certainly seemed to shill for the banks, you know, Chairman Powell being deboed into stopping his quantitative tightening scheme by mean tweets from Trump, which was an episode. It's when I really, you know, I really disliked Trump for that. My opinion of him never fully recovered after that. But you know, power-hungry people are often insecure. Power-hungry organizations can manifest a sort of collective insecurity, couldn't they? Look at people like Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot. They killed these people oftentimes. Part of the reason that they were so brutal is because they were insecure. Because when you have power, obviously, you're worried about other people wanting that power. And if you're trying to get more power, you have to worry about people getting in the way of that. The bureaucracies themselves, the middle upper management especially in the United States, incredibly insecure. They understand, if I hadn't said this before, they understand that the American people, some of these agencies, the people within them, they understand that the American people see them as corrupt. But what do? Their answer to that? Quarantine themselves within the Beltway. Stay as out of touch as possible with the people they actually rule. And yes, the bureaucracies do rule over the American people, especially the law enforcement and intel agencies, but not limited to them. So they did everything they could. They saw that, first of all, Biden was the best other choice. He was the lesser of two evils to them. They were so maddened by their insecurity. They panicked. And they gave us Biden. Now, I'm not one to say Biden was chosen and he wasn't fairly elected. Truth is, I just don't know. I kind of stay out of the whole election fraud thing. Of course, there was fraud. But there's fraud in every election. I think maybe there was more fraud than usual. Then again, they also changed the laws, as we know, to make that fraud essentially legal. But never underestimate the stupidity of a Democratic electorate. I think it's equally plausible that the American people legitimately elected Biden. The administrative state, through its partnership with the media, played a part in that. But yeah, so it all comes down to power, the power hungry, and their insecurity. The agencies are the most powerful entities in the United States. There are high-level bureaucrats in the DOJ and FBI and CIA that have been there for 30 years that are among the most powerful people in this country. You know, in the Byzantine Empire, you had this sort of tit-for-tat relationship between the aristocracy and the bureaucracies. That's kind of where we get the moniker a Byzantine system. A Byzantine system was a very complex system. Although by today's standards, you know, the Byzantine Empire wasn't all that complex. The Byzantine bureaucracy wasn't all that complex. Ours, it pales in comparison to our modern bureaucracies. But you see that with our own bureaucracy. You see partnerships between, for example, the FDA and the pharmaceutical companies and the universities. The structure of this system is definitely complex, and there are a lot of intertwined parts. But at the center of all of those parts, it's not the politicians. It's not even the billionaires. It's the bureaucrats. Right now, the SEC is harassing Elon Musk, one of the richest people in the world. He can't just snap his fingers and get those SEC lawyers off of his ass, you see. Another thing we must consider is that infinite money means infinite power. If you can print an infinite amount of money for a period of time, for that period of time, your power grows infinitely and exponentially. And that's the situation we're in with the bureaucracies. They have an unlimited budget. The SEC can harass Elon Musk and cause him real problems. A man with $100 billion. That's nothing to them. They'll blow through that. They'll blow through that much money in a year. I don't know about a single agency. Certainly the DOD blows through $700, $800 billion per year. I think the FBI is somewhere like 30 to 40 billion. Who knows how much money the CIA gets? DOJ, they're all in the tens of billions. They will sit there and harass the richest man in the world and make him sweat. So the aristocrats also fear the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats. They know it's good to have friends in those places. But to the bureaucrats, Trump was not enough of a shill. They thought it was going to be hunky-dory. Hillary Clinton was going to be president, and they wouldn't be able to do whatever they want, but they would get most of what they want. But with Trump, they started to sweat. And they got rid of him. And they maintained their hegemony over the United States. And that's what the bureaucrats have. Hegemony for now. They won. So now you got a president who is not capable of even leading the bureaucracy in a rudimentary fashion. So the whole reason we have a president is to head the executive branch, which is largely the bureaucracy. So now you have the DOD and the State Department arguing over Russia. You have these agencies just doing whatever they want. I'm wondering, whoever becomes president next election, will it be possible to rein them back in once they have this sort of freedom? Because Biden is just out for lunch. And I see, and you know, even the mainstream media has talked about how confused and how disjointed the policy is. It's because the bureaucrats are doing whatever the fuck they want. In 2 more years, they can go rogue, so rogue that it'll be impossible to bring them back. You know, our only saving grace, I think the only thing that can end this bureaucracy is probably, I hate to say it, the death of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which thankfully, the bureaucrats in the State Department and CIA who were really upset over the Russia invasion, they pushed our foreign policy in a direction that may actually cause the death of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. As long as they're able to print infinite amounts of money, they have infinite power. They can bury people like Elon Musk in paperwork and legal filings. And they'll do it just out of spite. So, long story short, in conclusion, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a Byzantine bureaucracy that has hegemony over this country, that is the central focus of power in this country. They are the central point of power. It's not the politicians. It's not even the billionaires. It's the bureaucrats. And Trump threatened that. He threatened it. And they felt so threatened because they are very insecure. Because they know they are parasites. So they did everything they could, including illegal things. A, because they knew they could get away with it. And B, because they're just that insecure. They would do anything to get rid of him. So that's my take on this tweet and on the situation. May God help us all.